What's up, sports fans? This is the NCAA College Sports Channel. It is time to give you the updated college football playoff outlook as we head into week number 12 of the 2025 college football season. We do got some new teams to eliminate for this week. We had the first playoff rankings, of course, last week, and the second playoff rankings will be coming out tonight. Don't forget, I will be live streaming that live show of the top 25 rankings, so stay tuned for that live stream coming up for you tonight. But I'm going to give you the updated playoff outlook here in this video for week 12 and eliminate new Power 4 teams. No group of 5 teams eliminated this week, which we'll see here in just a moment. But let's go ahead and get into the previous eliminations that we've already eliminated throughout the entire 2025 season. We'll start here with the Conference USA, the MAC, and the Sun Belt. Every team in the Conference USA and the MAC, those two conferences are not going to get a college football playoff team. 2 losses just will eliminate you automatically, and there's no way that a Conference USA and MAC champion is going to have a good enough resume to get into the college football playoff. Same thing for the Sun Belt. You still got one team that's still alive, and that's why you're seeing, all these teams still here in the elimination list. But we still got one team alive, and you'll see that team in just a moment. And then we go to the American and the Mountain West. So these are the teams eliminated from these two conferences at the Group of 5 level. You got Charlotte, Army, FAU, Tulsa, UTSA, UAB, Rice, East Carolina, and Temple out of the American. Then in the Mountain West, you've got Nevada, Air Force, Colorado State, San Jose State, Wyoming, Fresno State, New Mexico, and then the 2 big eliminations from last week. Well, I wouldn't really call it 2. Boise State's definitely a big elimination, and then you got Hawaii, who's kind of been a surprise team this year. So these are the eliminations from already in the American and the Mountain West, and then we go now to the teams eliminated from the Power 4. So in the ACC, you got several teams there: Boston College, Clemson, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Stanford, NC State, and California. I meant to eliminate Cal last week because they lost 4 games now, and I know they beat, obviously Louisville this past weekend, but 4 losses and 3 conference losses, I don't think it's going to be technically enough for Cal to make it to the ACC championship. They would need a lot of help, so California officially eliminated for this week, if we do count the elimination this week from last week. And then in the Big Ten, you got several teams here. You got Purdue, UCLA, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State, Rutgers, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, and Nebraska. So again, I put the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC Power 4 conferences in different slides. So we now move on here to the Big 12 and the SEC. You don't have a lot of eliminations from the Big 12, though. Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Colorado, and Kansas State. Then in the SEC, you got a little bit of several teams. You got Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, South Carolina, Mississippi State, LSU, and Tennessee. So again, these are the teams eliminated from the Power 4, from the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC. And like I said, I think 5 losses probably eliminate you in the Big 12. 3 losses probably eliminate you in the SEC and the Big 10. And then for the ACC, that's probably 4 losses. Again, there's so much parity in those two conferences, the ACC and the Big 12. While the SEC and Big 10 doesn't have a ton of parity, but there could be a lot of eliminations pretty soon to come. So let's now get to the new eliminations for this week. And before we get to those, we still have a team that's still alive out of the Sun Belt, and that is James Madison. James Madison has just 1 loss, and that was against a Power 4 team out of the ACC in Louisville. So James Madison, like I said from last week's video, if we do see a ton of chaos in the American Conference and then also the Mountain West really doesn't, it doesn't seem like it's chaotic at all. But you look at the American, if we have a ton of, chaos there, then, James Madison could sneak into the 12-team playoff field. So yeah, watch out for this James Madison team. I'm not sure they'll be ranked tonight because they were not ranked last week, but you never know. I mean, they probably were the second best team in that Group of 5 list out of the 12-team playoff field. So James Madison, with the 1 loss to Louisville in the game they were actually so competitive in, they are still alive in this playoff race. Let's go now to the new eliminations in the American and Mountain West. Well, none. You don't got any eliminations for this week. You still got several teams still alive in the American with 1 loss or 2 losses. And like I said, for the American in the Mountain West, 3 losses probably eliminate you in these 2 conferences. I don't know if a 3-loss Mountain West champion is going to possibly get in. I don't think the resume would be that great enough. And then the American, that's the same thing. I don't think a 3-loss American champion could get in as well. But again, several 1-loss teams still alive in the American, and then some teams still alive in the Mountain West as well. So no eliminations for these 2 Group of 5 conferences for this week. And then we move on to the Power 4 eliminations for Week 12. So these are the new eliminations for this week. You got Duke, Kansas, UCF, Iowa, Washington, and Missouri. So Duke is technically still alive for an at-large spot. They probably just have to win their conference. Or actually, they're not, they're actually eliminated from an at-large spot. They still got 1 conference loss, but they have 4 losses. They probably have to win out. They definitely need a lot of help in order to get to the ACC championship, because if Duke wins out, and if we have a ton of conference chaos in the ACC, in these final 3 weeks, then Duke could sneak into the ACC championship and win it. The seeding would just not be really good for them, but it would be enough to make the college football playoff if they just automatically win their conference. So again, Duke is still alive in the conversation in the ACC, but they're just eliminated from an at-large spot, if that does make sense. In the Big 12, Kansas and UCF, 2 teams that are not really surprising at all. These 2 teams just suffered their 5th loss of the season, so there's no path for these 2 teams. We saw Iowa lose their 3rd game of the season, even though they're ranked in the playoff rankings, from last week. I don't see a path there for the Huckeyes, and then same thing with Washington. Missouri also, they lost their starting quarterback, so I don't know if they have a shot either. So these are the new eliminations in the Power 4 from the SEC, Big 12, Big 10, and then also the ACC as well. So let's go to the top contenders now from each conference, and we'll see who is still alive in the field to make a college football playoff spot. So we start here with the ACC. It's kind of the same from last week. Virginia, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, SMU, and Duke. Like I said, Duke is still alive for potentially a spot in the college football playoff. Again, they're just going to have to win out in order to get, and also get a lot of help. A lot of these teams in the ACC, a lot of help. Miami definitely needs a lot of help. They already got 2 conference losses. Same thing with Louisville, but I don't think Miami is going to jump ahead of Louisville, because Louisville has the head-to-head victory over Miami, and then same thing with SMU. So that's the reason why I don't got Miami in here, because of those losses to these 2 teams. So you look at Virginia, they lost their 1st game. Technically, they're still alive, with 1 conference loss. Same thing with Georgia Tech. Pittsburgh also has 1 conference loss. Notre Dame is technically still in here because, they're associated with the ACC, but also they got 2 losses. The next time they lose, I think they're definitely out of it, because 3 losses will definitely eliminate a Notre Dame team with 3 losses there as well. So Notre Dame and Pittsburgh, they do play each other this weekend. I think that's going to really be the deciding factor here the rest of the way for both of these teams. I think the winner goes on to make the college football playoff, while the loser, they probably don't make it in, but they do have a pretty tough shot to make it in. So these are the top contenders in the ACC heading into week number 12, the same kind of like last week. And again, Miami is not in here because I just don't know if they have enough on the resume, or not on the resume, but just the tiebreakers in general with SMU and Louisville. Those are probably not going to be enough to make it into the ACC title game. Moving on to the Big Ten, we got the same 3 teams at the top, but we got 2 new teams here: Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana. They've been in here now for several weeks, and then you got Michigan and USC. These 2 teams have just 1 conference loss, so if Michigan beats Ohio State, I feel like that could make it in. I feel like that, could be enough to make it to the Big Ten championship, but also they probably have to see, Indiana or Oregon lose a game. Same thing with USC, because USC does have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Michigan, because USC beat Michigan already. There is a possible chance that USC could make it in with that win over Michigan, and then they also have to play Oregon. So what if Oregon loses another game and then Indiana loses a couple more games? That might be enough for USC to make it to the Big Ten championship. And plus, Michigan, if they beat Ohio State, I think we could have possibly a rematch between USC and Michigan. That's how I see it playing out. But I feel like even if Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana, if they were to lose a game, I still feel like they can make it to the college football playoff with just those lesser losses. So these are the top contenders in the Big Ten. I still think Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana are the top teams, but Michigan, USC, with those one conference loss, I think they're definitely not too far behind them. Next up, the Big 12, Texas Tech, BYU, Cincinnati, Utah, and Houston. Utah and Houston definitely need a lot of help in order to make it to the Big 12 championship. Texas Tech, I feel like if they win out, they control their own destiny after beating BYU. They have a schedule that sets up really well the rest of the way. BYU probably has to beat Cincinnati in order to get a rematch with Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship. And then Cincinnati, if they lose a couple of games, Utah probably jumps ahead of them. Or maybe not. Utah has 2 conference losses, but still, I think Cincinnati would definitely have to lose a couple of games. And then also that Utah has the head-to-head. So I think if Utah, if BYU loses a couple more games, then I think Utah jumps ahead of BYU, but BYU has the head-to-head, so I think if BYU loses a couple of games, I don't think that really penalizes them out of a Big 12 championship spot. But, Cincinnati, if they beat BYU, then I think Cincinnati is going to the Big 12 championship. I think that game kind of decides who plays Texas Tech, in the Big 12 championship. And that game is not until next weekend. It's not this weekend, but it's the next weekend. But, yeah, Texas Tech, again, if they win out, they control their own destiny. BYU and Cincinnati still play each other. And then Utah and Houston definitely need a lot of help with those 2 conference losses. All right, moving on to the SEC. It's definitely different, but it's almost like technically the same. You got Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Texas. So these 7 teams still have a pretty good shot to make a at-large, spot. I feel like Alabama, Georgia, and Texas A&M, though, you can automatically put them in because I feel like they're not going to lose, 3 games here down the stretch. Their schedules, Georgia has a pretty tough schedule coming up, with, Georgia Tech and also Texas left on their schedule. And then Texas A&M still has to play Texas at the end of the year. I think even with 1 loss, Texas A&M definitely does make it in. Vanderbilt probably has to win out. Same thing with Ole Miss. I think if Ole Miss loses another game, I still think they're probably in. And then Oklahoma, they probably have to win out in order to make it in as well. And then same thing with Texas. But Alabama and Texas A&M are at the top, while you see Ole Miss, Georgia, these are 2 one-loss teams. And then Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Texas, they all have 2 conference losses each in the SEC, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So these 7 teams still have a pretty good shot. I mean, 7 of them could probably all make it in, but I don't think a 3-loss Oklahoma team is possibly going to make it into the college football playoff because Alabama does play them this weekend, and that'll definitely decide Oklahoma's playoff hopes. If Alabama loses another game, I don't think Alabama will get penalized from the committee. They probably will win out and go 10-2 in order to make the college football playoff. All right, to the group of 5 contenders now. The same group of 5 contenders: South Florida, Memphis, Tulane, San Diego State, UNLV, Navy, James Madison, and North Texas. So these 8 group of 5 teams still have a pretty good shot to make the playoff. I don't think UNLV's resume is going to be all that great. Same thing with San Diego State. Again, unless we have a lot of chaos in the group of 5 in the American Conference, maybe San Diego State jumps ahead of a American champion, if that does make sense. Navy is still technically in here because they just have the 1 conference loss, but Navy probably doesn't have much of a resume in order to make it to the playoff. I still think South Florida and Tulane might have the best resumes out of all these group of 5 teams. North Texas kind of starting to build a resume. Memphis did just lose this past weekend, so I don't know if I see Memphis getting in now. But then James Madison, again, if we have a bunch of chaos in the American and the Mountain West, could a 1-loss Sun Belt team, James Madison, jump into the conversation for the playoff? That's how I think it's going to play out. If we have a lot of chaos in the American and the Mountain West, James Madison, I feel like, jumps in to the 12-team playoff field. I don't think it's going to happen because I feel like still a 2-loss American champion is going to make it in, and we'll see if one of these teams makes it into the playoff field. And my best guess, I think it would have to be probably maybe South Florida, Tulane, or North Texas. Those are the three teams. I think I see one of them in the playoff field tonight, but we'll find out. That is the updated playoff outlook heading into week number 12 of this 2025 college football season. What are your guys' thoughts on the playoff outlook, and also who do you think should have been eliminated for this week? Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more on the NCAA College Sports YouTube channel.